All right, welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast. This is Brian. It's Tuesday evening. We're going to talk MLB for the Wednesday main slate. We have a split slate tomorrow. We got a bunch of games in the afternoon, and it's actually sort of almost kind of split in half. We have 7 games during the day, and then we have looks like 9 games at night. So we have a sort of split slate, which I think makes it interesting because usually these 7 o'clock slates are pretty big, 15 games, and tomorrow's 7 o'clock main slate's only 9 games. So definitely will change up sort of how you approach the slate for sure. I am joined by Jay, who's my usual Tuesday co-host. Jay, what's going on, man?
How's it going, man? Just got done watching some basketball, watching the Rockies get shut out at home, and just enjoying this nice Tuesday night. How are you doing? Are you podded out at all? You've been on like 90 pods this week.
Yeah, I just finished the PGA pod like 10 minutes ago, and now I'm transitioning to MLB. So if I accidentally say, stuff about greens and regulation and Jordan Spieth, I apologize. It is actually pretty hard, more so than you would think it would be, just to like completely flip your mind from one sport to another. PGA DFS is just so different than MLB. They're both pretty valuable, but there's just so many you don't have matchups in PGA. I guess like the course is the matchup, and you don't have positions. Everyone's just a golfer. So it's just the whole all the strategy around it is very different. So I start talking about golf when I should be talking about baseball.
It's just a lot of pods going down is all.
Yeah. And during NBA Finals, which if you listen to the NBA pods, you guys know that I'm a huge NBA fan. It's my favorite sport, just in real life. So to miss that game to double pod, it shows my love and dedication for our listeners.
Yeah, man, you missed the abysmal offensive second half by the Spurs. It's horrible. Pretty rough.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk this Wednesday slate, and we'll go through the segments that we usually go through. Quickly, we'll touch on lines, but as of note, there's still a lot of lines to be released. Lines actually came out pretty late tonight. We still don't even have all of them. There's I'm looking at several games already that we don't have lines on for tomorrow. So that's definitely going to be something to monitor tomorrow morning and then throughout the day to see where these lines come out and then how they move. Just real quickly, I'll touch on the lines that we do have. The high team pretty significantly is Miami. They're implied at 5.1. Pirates at 4.7. And then there's no other team right now. Of course, that could change. That is sort of anywhere close to them. New York's at 4.1. There's a bunch of teams in the 3s. But again, check as we go on. All right, so let's.
I think the Red Sox will probably be up there when that gets announced. True.
Yeah, they have all the runs tonight.
Yep.
So without Ortiz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Crazy. So let's go through a segment. So we're going to talk 2 pitchers, and then we'll give a pitcher to Faye, and then move to batters. So. Jay, I'll let you start. Give me a couple pitchers that are intriguing to you tomorrow.
I think on this 9-game slate, you kind of want to simplify things for cash and just look at a few guys probably overall. But the main guy I think a lot of people are going to look at is Max Scherzer, and he's the guy I'm looking at in cash on both sites, under 10K on FanDuel. Personally, I'm really only playing him because the greatest player in baseball, Nick Castellanos, is expected to sit, so he doesn't have to face him, who gave Joe Ross his first home run allowed this season, just smashing right-handed pitching. So he's expected to sit because Miguel Cabrera sat today, Victor Martinez sat the first game, and all 3 of these guys get 1 day off the series. So it's Castellanos' turn to sit. So it's good for Scherzer because he's terrifying, obviously, after tonight. And then you look deeper into Scherzer. He's got on the K predictor, he's at 9.2 strikeouts, which is the highest on the slate. Tigers are implied at just 3.1 runs right now. So I think he's a pretty easy cash play, kind of given the lack of options since this is a 9-game slate and all. And then another guy I'm kind of looking at, and this is specifically for tournaments, just kind of getting contrarian, maybe affording some of these top bats. Of the teams you named, the Pirates and the Marlins, you could stack them and afford Jared Eichhoff, perhaps, as a tournament play, kind of save some salary and get these expensive bats, like I said. So I'm looking at Eichhoff because he's facing the Braves. The Braves, I think I saw today, they have 7 home runs this entire season, which is insane. I mean, that's crazy.
Good.
Most teams are like 25, 30 or so. But yeah, Eichhoff has strikeout potential. I know the Braves are worse against left-handed pitchers in terms of strikeout rate, but they're still pretty bad. Obviously, overall, I mean, they have the lowest WOBA, they have the lowest everything, every stat you could measure hitting-wise as a team. The Braves are just the worst in the majors. So
I saw a stat. I think this is correct that out of all the teams that have played a series at Turner Field this year, the Braves are the only team that don't have 2 wins in the series.
Jeez, I think they're on pace for like 134 losses.
It's impressive, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. They're
garbage.
They're definitely getting ready for the new stadium, I think. Just waiting it out. So
they're doing something. They actually have they're in a pretty good spot as far as if you look at their minor league teams. And
yeah, they always are. I mean, they just crushed the trade with the Padres. The Shelby Miller trade. Just they smashed it so hard. So I like the future for them for sure. But as far as tomorrow, I don't mind some Eichhoff exposure. Kind of attacking the Braves. I think a lot of people will go Scherzer and then Thor and some of these other guys that are a bit more expensive and will be higher owned. So I like the projected ownership of Eichhoff, and then the upside with his strikeouts.
I like it, yeah. My first guy that I think is intriguing is Thor, Noah Syndergaard. Really, so I think he's an elite talent, sort of always in a good matchup, sort of regardless of who he's playing. Not the greatest, admittedly, tomorrow. The Dodgers are not quite as good of a matchup as some of these other guys, whether you're looking at, Scherzer facing Detroit, Lackey facing San Diego, or even, like you were saying, Eichhoff facing Atlanta. Not the greatest matchup, but I do think his talent can overcome it. Really, he's intriguing to me because of where he's priced. He's like $2K more expensive than Scherzer's on FanDuel. I'm looking on FanDuel. So I think that people are going to be really, really heavy on Scherzer, and probably that's the optimal play. It's just that the savings of $2,000 is crazy. That's a min salary batter. So I think that people are going to be really heavy on Scherzer, which makes sort of the high upside, low ownership potential of Thor an intriguing contrarian play in tournaments.
Yeah,
the other guy that I like is Michael Pineda. I sort of have a love-hate relationship in that I can't really figure him out, but sometimes he goes off. He's always had like a crazy dud percentage, but sometimes he'll go off for like 45, 50 DraftKings points. He was like that last year. I wrote an article actually last year, just sort of detailing this weird trend where if he was priced at like 8,900 on DK, he sucked. But if he was priced below it, maybe it was the opposite. Anyway, the thing is he's no boom or bust. He's just a GPP player. And so I think he's intriguing. His salary just dropped so much. He's facing Kansas City. I get I get that he's just a guy that you really don't want to count on. But in tournaments, I think there's potential. I mean, his velocity is a little bit up. His advanced stats are pretty good. His batted ball distance is down. His batted ball exit velocity is down. So I think potentially he could be in a really, really sneaky spot if you don't want to, maybe if you want to get off Eichhoff as a just a little bit up from him in a contrarian spot. Pineda, I don't hate it necessarily as much as I think other people are going to hate it. He's intriguing to me.
That's fair.
All right, so who's your pitcher to fade?
I mean, there are a lot of pitchers to fade, obviously. Yeah, there are so many terrible pitchers on this slate, especially at the bottom. I mean, we got some Alfredo Simon, anybody. But a guy I'm looking at that I think some people will kind of look at as a sneaky play is Drew Pomeranz. Mm-hmm. Just that high strikeout rate that he's had, especially this year. He's pitched well. He's a good pitcher, but he's facing the Cubs, the greatest team of all time. I think they're crushing again tonight. I mean, they win every single game. So even looking at his high K rate, I'm off it. The Cubs have the highest WOBA against left-handed pitchers in all of baseball, and then more importantly, I think they have just a 16.1% K rate versus lefties, which is the second lowest in the entire league. So I think people are going to look for some tourney upside, kind of getting exposure with Palm. And, he's underpriced, I think, a bit, the K upside. So all things considered, I think people might think he's a sneaky play, just with the matchup more than anything is why he's kind of my fade for this slate.
Fair enough. My fade is Scherzer. I get everything you said. I get how great of a matchup he is. He'll be my cash pitcher. In tournaments, you got to fade him, I think. He's sort of just too above everyone, especially on FanDuel where you only have one pitcher. He's just too above everyone to where you're going to get him at even it's just going to be so hard to find a unique lineup with him just because people are going to lock him in. There's sort of stack a bunch of teams around him. It's a smart, optimal move, but I think that you're going to have to figure out some other plays, whether it's Thor or whether you want to go down to Eichhoff or even you want to roll the dice on Pineda or wherever you go. I think that GPPs could potentially be won by figuring out where to pivot from Scherzer. So I love his spot. It's not a fade as in he's a bad pitcher. This is just a purely tournament game theory.
Yeah, I agree. And on a 9-game slate, the more people that go Scherzer, the more common lineups there will be. There are only so many options. If you plug him in your pitcher slot, people are going to have same kind of lineup construction. So I think pivoting off him to either a higher price guy or lower price guy or even just a similar price guy to get that fade and then go chalk with your hitting maybe or any route like that. But I also think a good video that we had posted on our site was the Kevin Sports Geek video that he just posted when he won like 20K the other night. And he went through his pitcher and he had the same strategy. It was a night, I think, was it DeGrom was the pitcher?
I think so, yeah.
I think, who busted really hard. And he was like 70% owned. And Kevin had guys who were low owned and then got to spend up on bats, like really expensive bats. So I think it's a very, very strong strategy, kind of fading that clear chalk option that's going to carry high ownership in tournaments, kind of regardless of the size, even of the tournaments, because you need to be contrarian in pretty much any tournament in some way. So I'm down with the Scherzer fade in tournaments.
Yeah, baseball's just too volatile to have a guy that's super high owned, like 75% worth. It just baseball doesn't work like that.
Unless it's Castellanos, the best.
Right, there you go. Let's move to batters. Give me 2 intriguing batters, maybe on the elite side that you're intrigued by tomorrow.
Yeah, speaking of elite, Christian Yelich. I think he's one of the most underrated hitters in all of baseball.
Oh, wow.
I don't think we brought him up on the pod at all, especially for like our elite hitters, but I'm looking to target him strongly in cash on both sites. 378 WOBA against right-handed pitchers the last 12 months, 420 WOBA overall this season so far. And the best thing about him is he's gotten on base in all 30 games he's played this season. So you talk about a guy with consistency, a guy with a high floor. That's kind of what we look for in cash. It's ideal. He doesn't have the most power out of some of these guys, but he is producing consistently, which is something I look at in cash. A guy with a high floor. So you add all that. He's having a great season. He's a great hitter, and then he gets the luxury of facing Chase Anderson, who gives up a lot of hits, a lot of walks, a lot of runs. He has a hard hit percentage this season in the last 15 days, over 50%, which is by far the worst on this slate out of all pitchers. So you look at the Marlins as a whole, they're implied to score 5.1 runs. Yelich is hitting third. So I think you just definitely want exposure to this Marlins team in both cash and tournaments, and he's the guy I'm definitely looking at for cash. And then another guy I think is very intriguing on this slate is Ryan Braun. He's kind of a perfect example of a tournament player, especially on this slate, will probably get a bit overlooked since we have some of these teams that are applied at high runs. People are going to stack them and get exposure to these teams, and Braun might kind of fall through the cracks. He has a 438 WOBA and 293 ISO against left-handed pitching. So he gets to face Wei-Yin Chen. Brewers are implied to score just 4 runs, which is something I actually like, that it's not too high to where a lot of people are going to get exposure. So I like throwing Ryan Braun maybe as a complementary player to some of these stacks, like a Pittsburgh stack. If you go cheap on your pitcher and kind of getting more exposure to Braun than the field will have. So because of his splits and projected low ownership, he's one of my favorite tournament plays.
I like that. Yeah, so the first guy that I think is intriguing, and this is not going to be that bold of a take, Giancarlo Stanton.
I
He
almost did him too. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have he has reverse splits against right-handed pitchers, which actually I want to address in just a second. But Miami's implied to score 5.1 runs, and he's Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, there's really you don't have to say anything more than just that. But I do want to address his splits because people. I don't think they'll fade him because he's facing a righty in this slate, but he does go under-owned quite often in larger slates when he's facing a righty versus a lefty because of his splits. But if you sort of look at his look at his ISO split, he's got a 314 ISO against right-handed pitchers, which out of all regular outfielders, that is the second best in the slate. In fact, if you look at his ISO difference, which is massive, it's like a 299 ISO difference, which means that his right-handed he's 299 points worse versus right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. That difference would be the third best outfielder in the entire slate, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. So I think people, especially for elite guys, put way too much stock into splits. Like you're paying for the upside that they can afford anyway. He's only $4,400 on draft or on FanDuel, which I get is expensive and sort of relative to everyone here. It's sort of par for the course, but I think in a larger slate it would be a savings. So if you could potentially go down to maybe Eichhoff, I don't know, or whatever, I think he's going to be really hard to not play tomorrow. He's staying. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
The other guy that I'm interested in, actually kind of want your thoughts on it, is Mark Teixeira. I think the Yankees are super interesting tomorrow. They're implied for 4.1 runs, and I think it's going to be interesting to figure out where ownership is going to be on teams. Obviously, I think Miami's going to be highly owned. I would assume the Red Sox are going to be highly owned. But other than that, I'm not sure where it's going to distribute. Maybe Pirates third, but I'm not sure where it's next. And then so you sort of just go down and look at potential, lineups that work. And Teixeira's got really good splits, hits fourth, and in a good matchup. He actually is in the best park. The Yankees park is the best park for tomorrow night. So I'm curious what you think about the Yankees and Teixeira tomorrow.
Yeah, it kind of plays into my stat of the day with Ventura. But yeah, I think the Yankees are a very sneaky stack, and not even a stack, but getting exposure to a few of these guys. If you don't think they're going to go off for like 8 runs or whatever, you can still they hit home runs. Yeah, they have a lot of guys who produce pretty big games. Teixeira being the makeup player that he is, I think you definitely want exposure. Ventura is susceptible to home runs. His velocity is down lately, which I'll get into a bit more later. He's pitching on the road where he hasn't had success this season. So, yeah, I think I like the Teixeira call a lot. I think it's a guy who will carry low ownership. And on this slate especially, there's going to be a lot of chalk with there being 9 games. And two or three teams are going to be very highly owned spread across these teams. So he'll be a guy you can pivot to get contrarian lineups.
Yeah, I think he's really interesting tomorrow. Let's keep on moving. Let's go to value bets. We're going to split it up. You're going to do FanDuel, and I'm going to give a couple DraftKings guys that I think are interesting. You want to start with your 2 FanDuel guys?
Yeah, sure. I forgot to swap. I should have given you FanDuel for today, and then you can get,
No
or I'll get DK for the next one. But the first value better I'm looking at is Billy Hamilton. Expecting him to continue to hit second in the lineup, and he gets to face the Franciscos in this game, both of them in Liriano and space. Granted, he has to get on base, of course, first, which is the huge problem. But we've talked about Cervelli a little bit on this pod before. Gave up 101 stolen bases last year, which was easily the most in the league. I'm shocked. Billy Hamilton, didn't mention him last pod. when he played against Cervelli, but he got on base 3 times and somehow he didn't get a steal. He actually got happen again. So with this stolen base upside that Hamilton has in this matchup, I think I'm really high on him in tournaments, and I don't necessarily mind him in cash either. I probably won't roll the dice in cash, but I love the upside with the stolen base potential. And another guy I think on FanDuel who's very cheap is actually another Reds player, Brandon Phillips, underpriced at 2,800 on FanDuel. And then we got Derek Dietrich bumped up to 3,400 on this slate. I mean, he was 70% owned tonight. He was 60 or so the other night. I mean, he's just been in the leadoff spot. He's been pounding by everybody playing him, rostering him. So that bump up to 3,400 from, I think, 2,800 today, I believe, on FanDuel. So now you got Phillips at 2,800, who I think offers some pretty good salary relief if you're going to pivot. So he definitely went on a rampage lately, just destroyed the Brewers in that series. In the last 15 days, he has a hard hit percentage of 43%, 17% higher than his average in the last 12 months. He has a 45-foot average batted ball distance differential, which is the 4th highest on the slate of all hitters. So he's definitely seeing the ball well. He's hitting the ball hard. He's hitting the ball far. I think you can still go Dietrich in cash. I think you can afford it, and I probably recommend it, given the Marlins' circumstance of this slate. But I think if you need to save some extra salary, or if you want to pivot off Dietrich, since he'll likely carry high ownership again, then I think Phillips is your guy to do that.
Yeah, that's a great call. Which transitions right to my first DraftKings value bet, which is actually Dietrich. You're right. His salary did bump up a lot on FanDuel from, 2.8 to 3.4. But on DraftKings, he did not bump up at all. He was 3.4 and now he's 3.4. So they kept him the same, even in a small slate, even though he's been crushing. You're right in that spot. He has great. He's got 236 ISO, so he's got great splits. I think he's a good batter. I'm not going to go super heavy into why I love him, because I think he's been like my last 3 value bats. So people are probably getting sick of me talking about Dietrich. I mean, he's just underpriced, and until they bump him up on DraftKings where he's not just sort of an obvious value, I think you just keep on rolling him out, especially in a slate where mine is implied to score 5.1 runs. That's just too easy, honestly.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. The other guy I like is Justin Bour. So he, if you look at his, recent advanced stats, they just been real good. So he's got a 52% hard hit rate in the last 15 days, which is up 18% from his last year's mark. His distance differential is up 36 feet. His exit velocity is up 8 miles an hour. He's just crushing the ball when he gets a chance. So if he gets the start and bats 5th for this Miami team, I know it's I'm just focusing a lot on Miami bats, but they're sort of just the clear team that you want to focus on, especially in cash. I think this is the team to focus on, and I think Bour, who's at 3.4, like Dietrich, is just so cheap and a guy that you need to target. Like Dietrich, they're just way too cheap and should be value cash staples, I think, in your lineups.
Yep, and Yelich too. Yeah, definitely want a lot of cash exposure to the Marlins.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Let's go to a stack of the day. Who's your stack?
So my stack is the same stack you recommended last night, which came through huge today. So I hope people definitely rolled that one out. But it's the Red Sox. He's a very bad pitcher. He's just not good, simply not good. So we've seen the upside from the Red Sox lately. We saw it tonight. I think, you called them as your stack for today. So they went nuts. They were very low owned. I think Hanley was 2% owned, I think. Bunch of guys around 7-8% ownership. I think Pedroia was like 15 or so. But the stack as a whole was very low owned. So I think you look at this team, the way they're hitting lately, they've got a lot of Pop Ortiz didn't even play tonight. They're all hitting well. A lot of these guys, Jackie Bradley Jr. is hitting well. The Red Sox especially, honestly. The total isn't out yet, the line for this game, but I imagine the Sox will be implied at a very healthy amount of runs. They'll be up there with the Marlins and the Pirates. So, I like their chances a lot kind of going up against a pitcher who just is incapable of throwing strikes. I mean, he's horrible. He has the worst whip out of any pitcher on the slate over the last 12 months. Walks everybody, can't go deep into games. So this all just bodes very well for the Red Sox.
Yeah, I liked them last night. I like them again tonight, or for Wednesday's night for sure. My team, and I mentioned them earlier when I asked you what I thought. What is the Yankees? I talked about Teixeira. I think they're in a really interesting spot. If you're just sort of looking, not necessarily in implied runs, but just sort of the overall picture. They have a decent implied total. I mean, they're 4-1, so it's not like they're projected bad. They're in the best park if you're looking at park rating or park factor. They have the best park in tomorrow's slate, which I think is important. You look at some of these other teams and some of these other parks that aren't necessarily implied to score or especially score a lot of runs, but then you look at their park factor, it doesn't match up. That probably means that the pitchers are not that good, which I think is true. We have some bad pitchers tomorrow. But if you're looking just sort of a team that could potentially take advantage of a hitter's park and be a sort of a sneaky stack and be low owned, I don't think Boston should have been really sneaky tonight, but maybe this is another sort of.
Who knows, man? Like,
I know.
It's been crazy projecting ownership. It's really difficult this season.
It has, yeah. I haven't been that amazing at it, honestly, but I think sometimes I've been able to identify potential low owned stacks. Red Sox, and
it's so much easier highlighting like cash play, chop cash.
Yeah,
so easy to do that, but it carries such different ownerships and tournaments, as it should, of course. But just stacks as a whole they vary wildly, kind of, and I don't know if that's due to a lot of kind of sharp people throwing in a lot of different stacks or kind of pounding one or two teams as their core and kind of fluctuating ownerships in that regard. But I think it just varies different than what I guess we think for most of these slates.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it has been interesting to sort of gauge that for sure and keep up with it. All right, let's get two quick last segments and we'll wrap it up. A stat of the day and then a bold call. You want to go ahead and give me both, and I'll give you both?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, my stat of the day: Yordano Ventura, a minus 2.8 mile per hour speed differential on his average fastball in the last 15 days, which bodes well for your Yankees stack and your Teixeira call. So kind of plays into that. Yeah, it's a pretty steep decrease. He started the season off very hot. He was pitching well. Wasn't getting into too much trouble. And then the last two starts, he slipped. His velocity has been down a little bit. So I like having some Yankees exposure. And if you kind of look, the games he was really good in were at home this season. The two he slipped were on the road. Here he is on the road in a tough park to kind of pitch in. So I'm with you on the Yankees. I think they're a very sneaky stack, and I think it's something to monitor with Ventura in the next few starts for him. And then a bold call of the day, I'll get out real quick, is just calling a Chris Davis home run, the K Chris Davis.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, facing Rick Porcello, who he just has such a weak fastball, man. Like it's just I honestly think I could hit a double off of it. But yeah, home run prone. Davis will carry under 5% ownership, I guess, in tournaments. So he's a guy I'm going to have some exposure to facing Porcello. So going to drop it down. What do you got for your stat of the day and bold call?
Yeah, so my stat of the day, it just stood out to me in the models. I don't have to talk about this guy a whole lot, but I think it was just sort of amazing. Joey Votto has a hard hit rate of 60% in the last 15 days, which is just nuts. I mean, 60% is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane.
So high. So he's just crushing the ball, which is important to note. I mean, anytime these guys crushing the ball, you want to be sure you're on the right side of that. And then my bold call, and we'll end it after that, is Yankees take down GPPs, but not just the Yankees. A Yankees combined with Pineda. Going bold.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I thought your stack of the day was gonna be the Royals, just to spite Pineda.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I like just going all Yankees. Go batters in Pineda, and you're taking down the tournament.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, that'll definitely be contrarian for sure.
You gotta be bold.
So yeah. That's a good bold call day. It fits the description very well. So,
Yeah,
very
you gotta live bold, man. All right, well, we'll end it there. Jay, thanks for joining me, man.
yeah, anytime, man. Hopefully, by the time we're back, I'm going to be back with Pete on Thursday. Hopefully, the Rockies have scored a run by then at home.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe Cargo can just make contact with something.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I
Maybe.
don't know about that. That's a bold call.
That is a bold call. All right, well, we'll end it there. Everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As usual, good luck in contests tomorrow. If you want to get analysis on the early games, John Daigle's breakdown is going to be out in the morning. He's going to talk the entire day slate, but we appreciate you listening to our analysis on the main slate tomorrow. Good luck in all of your daily fantasy baseball contests tomorrow. Hope you guys take down a GPP, maybe with Pineda.
Good luck, guys.